We're covering an extremely important topic for the state of South Carolina. Those of you who know me know that when I first ran for office, my number one issue was the need for judicial reform. And we got a little bill passed 2 years ago, but it's a little bill, and we need a big bill passed. The only way we're going to get that done is for the people of South Carolina to tell the elected officials of South Carolina that we're tired of them running the show, that they work for us, and that we want them to do what 91% of the Republican voters said in the Republican presidential primary preference poll, referendum in 2024, they want us to do. They want us to have real judicial reform.
That's right.
I want to introduce my wife, Linda. She's right there. In February, we will have been married 58 years. You can tell by looking that she was 2 years old. I was 30. So,
Strom Thurmond.
Let me begin with something very important. I do not dislike lawyers. In fact, one of my favorite people in the State House is a lawyer. His name is Representative Ryan McCabe. Ryan is a man of principle, integrity, and courage. What we're talking about today is not about personalities. It's about the abuse of power. It's about justice. It's about having three separate but equal branches of government. Nationwide, the average state legislature consists of 14% lawyers. Here in South Carolina, our current legislature has 30% lawyers. I'm a numbers guy. Of the 2,800,000 men and women currently working in South Carolina, 11,000 are lawyers. Get out your calculator. That is 1/4%. That means we have in our General Assembly an overrepresentation of one occupation by 120 times their fair share. To me, that is not representative government. When I first came to the State House 3 years ago, I was assigned to the 3M committee. That's military, medical, and municipalities. Representative Bill Sandifer, then chairman of the Labor, Commerce, and Industry Committee, asked me what committee I had been assigned to. When I told him 3M, he said, quote, "That's a good one. The doctors will give you a lot of money when you campaign. The only thing better is the Judiciary Committee. Lawyers will give you more than doctors do." Wow. To the oldest freshman ever elected to the South Carolina legislature, that one statement sums up what is wrong with our system.
Yep.
Politics and money rule when we should be governed by principle and fairness. I learned that day something about how Columbia works. I've learned a lot more in the last 3 years. When last year I ran for re-election, the Columbia cartel recruited a lawyer to run against me. His campaign finance report listed 41 contributions from lawyers. Mine listed one, my friend Ryan McCabe. So why do we have so many lawyers in the legislature? Partly because our Constitution gives enormous power to the General Assembly. Our General Assembly has the power to write the laws, and then our General Assembly has the power to elect the judges to interpret those laws, the power to punish those judges when they don't rule the way the General Assembly desires, and the power to determine salaries for those judges. It all starts with a constitutional commission named the Judicial Merit Selection Commission, the JMSC. It is that group that receives documentation from aspiring judges. The The JMSC is dominated, if not controlled, by lawyers who are also legislators. It is that group that determines if a person is qualified to become a judge. It is that group that sends to the General Assembly, overrepresented by lawyers, the names of those they deem qualified. Three equal but separate branches of government. Let's get real. 2 weeks from tonight, right over there, Williams-Brice Stadium, our annual fall classic, Carolina versus Clemson. I've crisscrossed the state speaking to groups about our judicial system. I've asked a simple question. Tiger fans, would you think it was fair if the Carolina coaches got to handpick the referees for that game? No. Gamecock fans, would you think it was fair if the Clemson coaches got to handpick the referees for that game?
No.
Not yet has anyone said yes. Because everyone knows it would not be fair and it would not provide justice. And yet, that's exactly what happens in South Carolina's judicial system today. For 4 years, I've traveled around the state talking about our judicial problem and working within the legislature to fix it. Right now, I have a bill, House Bill H 4516, that would change the way judges are chosen in our state. My bill would allow the executive branch, not the legislature, to appoint all the members to the JMSC. That's more in line with our federal model. It would prohibit legislators, the ones who will eventually vote on the judges, from serving on the JMSC. That would diminish the insider trading influence. It would limit JMSC members to 2 two-year terms. That would create fresh faces on the JMSC instead of allowing seniority power to dominate the decisions. That's accountability, that's transparency, that's reform. Senator Wes Clymer is working on a bill for introduction to the Senate in January. He's been working with Doge SC to create the bill and to get verbal sponsors when the bill is introduced. I have verbally committed to be one of those co-sponsors. His bill would also include the fact that the executive branch would be the staff that actually researches the people that have applied to be a judge. So it even more puts the executive branch in charge of the judicial selection. Words are not enough. It's time for us to take action. I did invite all 5 Republican candidates for governor to be here today. I invited all 3 Republican candidates for attorney general to be here today. And I'm thrilled that some accepted. Thank y'all. I believe that if we the people and our potential governor and our potential attorney general are all fighting and campaigning for real reform, that our General Assembly will hear us and will act. Let's not forget, during the 2024 Republican presidential primary, 91% of Republican voters said we need judicial reform. The people have spoken. At least some, if not all, of the Republican candidates for governor and attorney general will be speaking for reform. Now it's time for the General Assembly to listen. More specifically, it's time for Representative Weston Newton, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, and Senator Luke Rankin, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, to listen to us, the voters of South Carolina, not the powerful and well-funded law lobby and their well-funded campaign super PACs. You see, the legislative process makes real change difficult. For my bill, H 4516, to get a hearing in the House Judicial Committee, Representative Newton must give it his approval. For Senator Clymer's bill, to get a hearing in the Senate Judicial Committee, Senator Rankin must give it a thumbs up. That's where we, the people, come in. And it's up to us to communicate to Representative Newton and to Senator Rankin that we expect them to listen to us and not their law school buddies. Today you'll hear from 4 South Carolinians who have been victims of our broken judicial system. Their stories remind us of what's at stake. Real people, real lives, real justice. And then we will hear from those candidates for governor and attorney general who chose to be here with us today. They will share their visions for a fair and independent judiciary in South Carolina. Together we can restore balance to our government, three separate but equal branches, the way our founders intended. Let's make 2026 the year South Carolina finally fixes its justice system, not for politicians, but not for the lawyer and their powerful lobby, but for the people of South Carolina.
That's right.
Laurie Williams.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate y'all being here. Thank Joe for asking me to come and speak. I've known Joe a little over 3 years. Again, my name is Laurie Williams. I am the sister of Lieutenant Larry Vaughn. He was a police officer in Rock Hill, South Carolina for over 30 years. He was murdered in his own home. July 23rd, 2021. It took 4 years, 1 month, and 11 days to get to trial. I'm not up here to bash anyone. I thank God for the judge that he sent to us. I thank God for our solicitor who fought for us. But along the way, in those 4 years, 1 month, and 11 days, my family was re-victimized by the system. Because the defendant who murdered my brother, his family had connections and unlimited money. And not only did they hire a powerful attorney, they also hired a lawyer legislator as part of their defense team. What people don't realize is lawyer legislators also have the ability to have immunity from trial. So they don't have to attend any court hearings from January 1st until July 31st each year while legislature is in session, which allows them to postpone anything that they're on the docket for. It shouldn't be that the wealthy and the ones who have connections are the ones who control other people's lives. We need judicial reform in this state.
Absolutely.
It is not fair for someone to commit crime against another human being and the victim to keep being victimized. And even after, we need to change some other laws too. It shouldn't be that those victims continue to be victimized after trial has come and sentence has been handed down. Very happy that my brother's murderer was convicted of murder and will spend his life in prison. But it doesn't end there, because he has more rights than we do. He will get appeals, he will get motion hearings, he will get all that. The lawyer legislator that was on our case at the time was also the chairman of the Judicial Merit Selection Committee.
There's only two.
So, a year and a half after my brother was murdered and being refused bond twice, after this lawyer legislator was put on the defense team, we had another bond hearing that was supposed to be postponed until after the first of the year. But that lawyer legislator was able to get another judge to come in and hear the bond hearing. And my brother's murder was given a $250,000 bond and was set free to walk around York County's community for 2.5 years until he was reprimanded into custody at trial. Our system has to change. You people have no idea how broken this system is until you have boots on the ground.
Yep.
Right.
I stand here today representing my family. My brother was my only sibling. He was my best friend. He was my hero. My two nieces no longer have their daddy. My parents no longer have their son. This has been devastating for our family, for our loved ones, his blue family, his friends, his community. I implore each and every one of you, do your research. Don't just vote for, oh, so-and-so, if they know his mom and daddy. Find out who they're voting for. There is an app you can go to, SouthCarolinaLegislature.org. Get on there, .gov. Get on there. There are meetings you can attend, meetings you can sit in and find out to Columbia and vote totally different. Don't do your clickbait headlines. Do your research. Because I'm promising you, one day, it may not affect you directly, but indirectly you will be affected. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democratic issue.
Nope.
This is an issue of the citizens of South Carolina. You don't want to wait until you're me to learn about stuff you never ever thought you would learn about or want to. Because trust me, it's Saturday in the South. My game was played last night. Go Tigers. But it's Saturday in the South. I love football. I'd love to be watching football. But I'm here speaking to you, begging you guys, do your research. Vote for the people who are going to stand for you, who have your back. When the worst possible time, you need those people that stand up and say that they're here for you, and have your back. Ask them to make this reform. We all wait until somebody gets into the big office and we complain about what's wrong. What's wrong? It starts right here, guys. It starts in your little towns. People learn corruption when they're not checked. If you send them and then you don't see what they're doing and you don't hold them accountable, then guess what happens? For 4 years and 1 month and 11 days it takes for somebody to be held accountable. And it probably would have taken longer if the good Lord hadn't finally sent us a judge who was ready for it to be off the docket. So again, do your research on your candidates. If you're not sure about something, ask. Thank Joe for bringing this attention. For 3 years, I've stood with him and fought for this very subject way before we got justice for my brother. But I'm going to have a fight on my hands for me and my family and my brother for the rest of my life. Thanks to a man who murdered my brother by no fault of his own in his own home. Guys, please, vote right. Vote right, because we need correction. The corruption in South Carolina needs to stop. The good old boy system needs to stop. Hold them accountable. You can come and sit in these meetings. You can, if you can't attend the meetings, you can hear them. They're videotaped and audio recorded and archived. If there's something you miss, go back and look it up and listen to what they're talking about, what they're saying, because you will be surprised what is said in there when nothing, they don't think anybody's listening. Go down there. We appreciate y'all being here. Vote correctly. Vote for judicial reform. Thank you again, Judge. Thank you guys for being here, everybody.
Our next speaker is Shannon Nicole. She has a family court problem. In my opinion, the most problems we have in courts in South Carolina are in the family court.
You got that right.
Because family court destroys families.
Yup.
You know, criminal court, you got somebody that did something wrong, maybe. Civil court is usually about money, but family court is about people. And so she's very nervous. She really come and speak. She's from Myrtle Beach, but come on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Get
for that
close to the
introduction.
microphone. Get very close to the microphone.
I'm an ordinary person. I'm a mother who dedicated the first part of the 6 years that my children were born to raise them. I was a stay-at-home parent. I was a primary caregiver. And my family was my whole world. I'm here today because what I have lived through in the family court system has leveled me. It has actually leveled me and my children and my family. This is not just a story. This is real life, what I'm about to share with you. And it's raw, and it's ugly. And there's so many people that don't like to hear about it because it's emotional, and it's tragic, and it involves things that people are uncomfortable with, like domestic violence. I lived in a household where I experienced domestic violence pretty severely. I was seeing professionals to try to figure out an escape plan and to protect our children. The professionals had told the family court in many affidavits, this family is in crisis, these women and children are not safe, there is extreme domestic violence, there is narcissistic abuse, there is physical violence, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and the children need to be protected. The father of our children was under DSF safety plan. He was being supervised 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because of the assault on our son, a physical assault on our son. Our son was 5. Our son was 5 years old, and a grown man assaulted him. And I went to the family courts because I didn't have any other option. I didn't have time to put a slush fund together. I didn't have time to make a plan or an exit strategy. I went to the one place that I thought was going to protect me and my family. And when I got there, I was informed that it was an ambush hearing. And for many of you who might not understand what that is, you walk into a courtroom and you have no idea what's going to be presented on either side, and they ambush you, and a judge, without a jury, makes a decision on the precedent of your case. Whatever happens in this first hearing is what's going to happen. It's going to be the narrative, so to speak, for the rest of your journey through family court. So if you don't have the right team of lawyers, if you don't have enough money, you might not be the winner. I walked into court with all of my evidence. I walked into court with affidavits from professionals. I walked into court with self-proclaimed confessions from the abuser in our household. I want to, for gravity purposes, and not to exploit him, because I believe that he deserves his privacy, but at the same point, I do believe there's a certain level of accountability that needs to be had. And so I'm going to read you, very briefly, some of the quotes from letters that the abuser wrote himself. And I presented this to the judge. And I asked her, will you please protect my family? Don't take the children away from him, but put safeguards in place so that we're safe, and he's safe, and he can get some intervention. And this is what he has to say about himself. I often have dreams about physically beating people. I black out with rage and flash, and it takes me to dark places. I retaliate and inflict pain upon those who are closest to me, for whom I reserve it. I seek revenge and punish my victims. My anger reaches our children physically, emotionally, and verbally. I want others to feel sorry for me, he says. I want them to side with me. I want them to validate me. And I want what I want. And if I don't get it, I will feel grieved. I brought this to family court because I wanted the judge to understand the gravity of what we were facing behind closed doors. I wanted a plan in place that would allow safety and allow a place where our children could thrive in an environment that was safe. That's it. And a path that we could get to maybe even 50-50 custody. I wanted that for our family. I believe both parents should be part of their children's lives. That's my belief. It's still my belief. And I understand that there's a bill that's trying to be passed where 50-50 would be the standard for South Carolina. And that would be a really good place to start. Because even if you're in a household like mine where we're under domestic violence, 50% is a really big number when you're talking about saving a child's life. 50% away from the abuse is still 50%. And I would happily have had that. But I didn't get that. In fact, what happened to me was so cruel, it's hard for me to even talk about. Opposing counsel had a lawyer who was in the fast tracks to be a judge. Everybody knew it in the room but me. Stands up and says, Your Honor, she's alienating the children. He hasn't seen the children in a month. Your Honor. The judge stopped everything. The whole room went silent. And the judge looked at me like I was a criminal. Never mind all the evidence that he was on supervised visitation. Never mind the evidence that he showed up to visitations and got angry and left our children alone in restaurants. Never mind he no-showed most of the time. Never mind all of the co-parenting applications that I had. Inviting him to come and spend time with us under an accountability of an umbrella of accountability didn't matter. Evidence didn't matter. Professionals' affidavits didn't matter. The law didn't matter. What mattered was the wannabe judge stood up and said, parental alienation. And in that moment, the judge ordered this. The father was immediately removed from supervised visitation with our children. I was ordered to vacate the home, the only home that I'd ever known in South Carolina and made a home for our children. I was ordered to vacate that house that very day, having no place to go. I was told that I could only take a small backpack of my possessions from the house that I made a home for my children. The father retained full control of our marital finances, 6 figures. I got nothing. No support, no child support, no support, no nothing. He got to keep 100% to my 0. To add insult to injury, what I didn't know was that there's such a thing called a guardian ad litem.
Oh,
I
$500,000.
appreciate that sentiment, y'all, because let me just tell you, thank you. This gentleman in the front row said they're monsters. Let me tell you, what I'm about to share with you will verify that, and I have proof and evidence of everything I'm saying. The guardian ad litem was appointed this day. I was court ordered to pay thousands of dollars within 30 days, or I'd go to jail. Jail? I didn't even know that was a possibility in family court, because I'm not a criminal. But here I was being told on my court order, don't pay the guardian ad litem fees, you're going to jail. I returned home that day, and I'm going to make this part very brief because there's other things we've got to get to. And I had a witness with me. They were helping me put some stuff in my backpack. How do you explain to a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old who you've been their primary caregiver that all of a sudden the man who abandoned the family is coming back, storming into the house, and ordering me out right in front of them? They're screaming, Mommy, 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 please come back, Mommy. But I was court ordered to walk away from my children as they're screaming and they don't understand. have nightmares about it. They tell me. I will say that for all of the terrible court orders that we've had in my particular case, there was one that was very good. So I do believe that there are good judges in South Carolina. And I do believe that some of those judges will follow the law. And I do believe that some of those judges will look at the evidence. And of all the names in my case, and you can look my case up, I'm going to speak on Judge Norton. And I'm just going to give him a brief moment to say thank you. Because I went before him 6 months later when I had to figure out how I was going to live homeless, get a job since I had been a stay-at-home mom, basically restructure my life with zero money. I had no bank account. And imagine yourself in that position, what would you do? It took me 6 months to go back before the court, and at that time, he did implement some things based on the evidence. And he said, coercive control will not be tolerated in my courtroom. Yeah. And what we need to understand is that coercive control is a really big issue. It's a big issue for women of domestic violence. There are some men that experience coercive control within their relationships as well. It's not just gender specific, but it is an issue. And it needs to be talked about, and there needs to be laws about it. Because the destruction that happens from coercive control happens in families, but it also happens in mediation rooms. Mm-hmm. After Judge Norton's ruling, we entered our state-required mediation. And I thought, well, this is great. I have no money left. We're here. We're gonna make amends, and we're gonna figure out how to cohesively work together, and we're gonna move forward. With joint custody is gonna be great. In mediation, I experienced the most horrific coercion, bullying, threats, that I would lose my children forever, intimidation, and manipulation to a degree that I don't know if anyone has ever experienced in their life. I sat across from a guardian ad litem who told me she could get a judge to sign whatever court order she wanted.
Yep.
That I better sign that mediation document right there.
Yep.
And why is that? Because the other side had a lot of money. There were a lot of assets there. There was a lot of money at stake, and I had nothing. As the lawyers and the mediator and the guardian laughed about the secret of family court, they said a client can get anything. Businesses, assets, even sole custody, if they can afford the high dollar price tag. And that's the day that I learned, and that was in, I think, 2022. My case started in 2020. That's the day I learned that this is pay for play. This is a profit-driven system. And we need to do something about it.
Kids for profit.
Cash for kids. I lost my custody rights at the next hearing because a guardian ad litem put before the court a motion to stop a DSS investigation of my daughter, and I can't go into the graphics of that, but let me tell you, it's concerning. It's extremely concerning. There's video evidence, there's audio evidence, and she stopped a DSS investigation and silenced my daughter. And the judge put me on supervised visitation because I made a disclosure. I have been punished for speaking the truth. I have been punished for merely trying to protect my children, our children. He was given sole custody while he was on a DSS safety plan. Yeah. The family court gave my now ex-husband sole custody while he was on an active DSS safety plan, requiring that he be supervised when he was with our children 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The judge signed the order that the guardian ad litem presented. I didn't have due process. There was nothing at this hearing that suggested a change or modification of custody. My children were literally ripped from my legal custody illegally. And ever since then, I have not been able to get them back. And I just want to tell you all that this is real life that I'm living. I'm not a professional speaker. I'm not paid to be here. I am living paycheck to paycheck. I can't afford a lawyer, and the reason is because $1.2 million in assets, marital assets, were liquidated to fund this litigation, and I got zero of that marital funds because the judge determined that that wasn't mine. I'd like to pose the question, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What am I going to do? What are our children going to do? How are we going to raise the next generation to take care of us when we're causing mental illness in their little brains?
Yep.
My son, and I know I have to get down, my son was strangled by his father a couple of weeks ago to the point he couldn't breathe. Horry County Police Department, where I live in Myrtle Beach, has failed. They say it's a family court issue. This is not a family court issue. This is criminal. And we have representatives here who can help. And I pray that they will. Thank you.
You know, it takes a little longer to tell a story when it involves family. It's easy to tell a story when it's a criminal offense. But it takes a little longer to spread the story out when it's about a family. So, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Carl Stoller wanted to be here this morning, but he sent something for me to read. Good morning, everyone. My name is Carl Stoller, the father of Dallas Hayes Stoller. Representative Joe White asked me to write a statement that he could read on my behalf this morning. I wanted very much to be here this morning to share Dallas's story. However, yesterday was the 4th anniversary of Dallas's untimely death. A very difficult time for myself, my wife Michelle Grass Stoller, and my 2 surviving daughters, Brett and Carly. I did not feel I could present her story properly this close to the anniversary of her death. Again, thank all of you for being here, and I hope to get another opportunity in the future to speak to you all. Our story began on an October night in 2018. Our 17-year-old daughter, Dallas, attended a party with friends in Bamberg County. Sadly, this night will be one we will never forget, for on that night our daughter became a victim of sexual assault at the hands of a young man Dallas believed was her friend. This fateful night set in motion a series of events that would ultimately lead to our daughter's death on November the 14th, 2021, the night before my 52nd birthday. Dallas was in her senior year at Orangeburg Preparatory School. Dallas was the president of her senior class, college bound with a bright future ahead. More importantly, however, Dallas was a friend to not just a few, but to almost everyone she encountered. She truly had a heart there are no words big enough to describe. Then tragedy struck, and her entire world was turned upside down. Suddenly, she was seen as different, and most hurtful thing to her was not believed. Most classmates, teachers, and many adults believed in her and supported her. However, there were also many who took the side of the offender. In other words, that were very hurtful to Dallas, left an unseen wound that would never heal. More importantly, she fell victim to a legal system I most passionately believed in and taught all my daughters to believe in and respect. The investigation by law enforcement was, in my opinion, done correctly. However, because of the actions of Second Judicial Circuit Solicitor Bill Weeks' deputy, David Miller, Dallas was further victimized. David Miller is a man whose desire to become a circuit court judge seemed more important than serving justice. I fully believe he saw an opportunity to gain favor by helping, or at the very least, not resisting any ideas brought up by the defendant's attorney, Senator Brad Hutto. As the defendant was granted bond for his charges, and while on bond, re-offended by sexually assaulting another young lady in Orangeburg County just 45 days after receiving a bond in Dallas's case. The defendant, Bowen Turner, did land in DJJ for a short time. However, he was eventually released on bond once again at the request of Senator Hutto and with little to no resistance by David Miller. Time passed, and eventually Dallas started her freshman year at the College of Charleston. Things seemed to be going well, and then the talk about Dallas's case and the other victim began again. Dallas silently struggled, enduring ridicule from people who have no idea how the court system works and how long the case can be continued, especially by a powerful lawyer legislator. Eventually, the negative talk made Dallas decide to move to the University of South Carolina in Beaufort. Once again, things seemed to be greatly improved, and Dallas was on the right track again. After completing her sophomore year with little problem, Dallas began her junior year. Her life seemed to be moving along as planned. Then on the evening of November the 14th, 2021, we received a phone call letting us know Dallas was being transported to the hospital with a self-inflicted wound. By the time we arrived at the hospital, and he probably would have done better than me, and we're told he had lost our beautiful daughter Dallas, I do not have the words to fully explain how hearing this feels to a parent. The questions, the guilt, the where did I go wrong, and how did we miss this, was all racing through our minds. What I did know was my beautiful Dallas was let down by a system that more often than not victimizes the victim and seems to care more about the offender, especially if he is represented by a powerful lawyer legislator and is being prosecuted by an ambitious, self-serving deputy solicitor. After Dallas's death, I made it my mission to fight for change in our system. The way we select our judges in South Carolina is perfect for individuals who seek judgeships with no concern for victims and true justice. I'm determined on behalf of my late daughter to change this system and also to make victims' rights meaningful. There is no way we can continue to support a system that allows backdoor plea deals and have judges hear cases in front of the very people who are responsible for their sitting on the bench. I've heard it said multiple times by lawyer legislators who support the way we currently appoint judges to the bench. Our system is not corrupt. It only appears that way.
Right.
I ask, why do we continue to support
Spencer Wetmore.
appears corrupt? Why do we not change our system to one where there is no question and to one we can be confident in? Why do we not allow victims to speak prior to a decision being made in regard to a plea deal? Why do we only allow a victim's statement to be read after a decision has already been made? I beg each and every one of you to demand our current system be changed, demand victims' rights to be respected, and allow victims to speak when it really matters. Make these demands in not only my daughter's memory, but also in honor of all victims. If we do not stand now and only pay lip service to this mission, we're giving the powers that be the eternal right to do whatever they choose. I've taught my daughters to be fighters, to stand up to those who cannot stand for themselves, and to always do what is right, no matter the cost. Please fight with us, and together, I'm confident we can change the way things are and move toward making things the way they should be. Respectfully, Carl M. Stover. Our next speaker is one of the most recent victims of our judicial system. Stephen, would you come up?
First of all, I want to thank everybody for inviting me here. I'm a little taller. I don't prepare speeches. I speak from my heart, and I speak from what I feel. I'm the father of Logan Haley Federico, and on May 3rd, she was brutally executed by a career criminal as he placed her on her knees, naked, with her hands out in front of her, as she begged for her life. He stuck a 12-gauge shotgun in the left side of her chest, under her breast, and pulled the trigger. That was the day I lost my daughter, our daughter, and I no longer was a hero. My goal now is to tell people her story and scream it from the rooftops of the injustice that caused Logan's death. I do this because I have a son that I need to become his hero again. I failed him. I failed my wife. I want to be her hero again. And moreover, I will be perfectly honest with you. I feel like there's people in this community that I have on my shoulders now, across the United States, that I want to carry to the finish line, to see justice for everyone, so they don't have to do what we have to do and speak to crowds like you and to the press, and to be in the mainstream of something that was so preventably forgotten. A career criminal named Alexander Dickey, who was in your neighborhood, who was in these surroundings, about a mile and a half from here, took my daughter's life. Okay? It shows that he was arrested 39 times with 25 felonies, but was yet allowed to roam the streets of your county, in Lexington, in Richland County. You have to ask yourself, how does somebody like that slip through the system? Okay? I'm here and not going anywhere until I tell you in one of these conferences how exactly that happened. There's a system that failed Logan Haley Federico, a 22-year-old beautiful blonde bombshell, Southern belle, that loved life, that enjoyed life, figured out that she was going to be a teacher and she was going to make a difference in kids' lives. She was going to mold them to be the people that we would all be proud of. We don't have that opportunity any longer. That opportunity was stolen by judges. One in particular that saw Alexander Dickey 6 times. That decided that the 411-day prison term was better than the 5 years he was actually given. Why is that? Could we not see through the lines that 39 times he committed crimes? He wasn't going to change. You know, people talk about prisons not rehabilitating people. Prisons are bad. Prisons aren't bad. Prisons are for bad people that can't be rehabilitated. The worst things about prisons are there's not enough of them. And there's not enough people in them.
That's right.
I'd like to believe in rehabilitation. I would like to believe in rehabilitation. I really would. But you would actually have to put people in prison to see if that actually works. Then you look at the mental health issue of it, because I believe in that as well. I believe there is mental health challenges in our system that fail people with mental disease. Okay? But the last place you put them is on the streets. Okay? Alexander Dickey was a violent criminal. He showed that time and time again. He was not going to change. My daughter was in a frat house, visiting friends like she did at Clemson, at UNC Charlotte, at the University of South Carolina. Just the last week of school was a celebration. She left on a Friday. She never came home. I never saw her again. The last image I see of my daughter, which happened on May 3rd, and I haven't slept since. When I close my eyes, I see my daughter on her knees. I see Alexander Dickey walking in the room, and I see my hand reaching out and just missing, grabbing her out of the way. I want to be her hero again. And the only way that's going to happen is if I make change. And I will tell you this right now. I'm not going anywhere. I promise the state of South Carolina and the innocent people of this state and every state that I can affect, when we get through a registration for felons, a national registration for felons, you will know who your next door neighbor is. I'm already working on that. You will know how many felons are in your neighborhood. There's no reason why we shouldn't. And there are all kinds of different felons. But felons that commit crimes against humanity are felons that you need to know about. Okay? And I will make sure that you do. There's going to be another Logan Federico, unfortunately. My goal will be to make that happen less. And Alexander Dickey will come to trial. He's allegedly has other crimes. I was gracious enough to meet with Rick Hubbard last week, and I'm meeting with the solicitors on Monday for Richland County, Byron Gibson and his team, and hopefully we can come up with some good plans. But we need to keep people like Alexander Dickey off the streets, and we need help from these gentlemen to do that. And we need that through a better justice system.
Absolutely.
Better judges. They can't run rogue. Okay? That's not the way this game is played.
They do now.
It's not a game. They played with Logan's life, and Logan lost. Please keep us in your prayers, and know that I'm here for anyone, and I will speak as long and as many days as I have to get the job done. Thank you.
Wow. That's a real man. I said I invited all 5 Republican candidates for governor to come today. We got 2 to come. I invited all 3 candidates for Attorney General to come. We got 2 to come. So I want to thank Attorney General Alan Wilson for being one of those that said, I'm going to come and I'm going to talk. So thank you. He's next.
Folks, I think we can all agree that if this press conference stopped right now, we'd be good. Because I don't think anyone else sitting up here can say anything that even comes close to what we've just heard today. Folks, I've been talking about judicial selection reform for the better part of a decade now. And when you look at how we elect judges in South Carolina, it's very simple. The way that we select candidates for the judiciary, the way that we vet candidates for the judiciary, the way that we elect them, nominate them, and then elect them, is controlled by one branch of government. I have always believed that the best form of government and the most important function of each branch of government is to have a check on the other 2 branches of government. That is the most important thing the 3 branches of government can do, is check each other. The way that we elect judges in South Carolina does not have equal checks and balances. There has not been parity of power for generations. This has been borne out in the stories that you have heard here today. I have fought, like many people up here, have fought for judicial selection reform. For 30 years, the JMSC did not change statutorily. I'm grateful to the legislature for moving the needle 2 years ago, but it's not enough.
Amen.
I was talking to a legislator recently, and he said, the most important thing that I vote on is who a judge will be, where a judge will serve. The most important thing the legislative branch of government does is votes on judges, because that's an entirely independent branch of government that has real-world ramifications, implications for the families here in South Carolina. And right now, real or perceived, we do not have adequate checks and balances. We do not have parity of power between the three governments. I've spent my entire professional life standing in front of courts. And let me tell you something. This is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. This is not a legislative versus executive branch of government issue. This is not a lawyer-legislator versus non-lawyer legislator issue. This is a right versus wrong issue. I have met with Republicans who are for judicial selection reform, and I have met with Republicans who oppose it. I have met with Democrats who are for judicial reform, and I have met with Democrats who are against it. I have met with lawyer legislators who support the reforms that are here today, that we're talking about. And I have met those who benefit from the status quo and oppose it with every breath they take. I have heard stories as I've traveled the state, and the stories that I've heard, I'll tell you right now, I wish none of you were up here today, these victims. You're only up here because of the tragedy that occurred in your life. And I wish that I not know you this way, but here you are. And thank you for standing up here and telling your story and the story of your loved one that you lost. Because if that's what it takes to get reform done, then that's what we need to do. You were talking about your situation with family court. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, when we were doing the first debate on judicial reform, I was talking to a lady who served on a Citizens Advisory Committee. This is an advisory committee that advises the Judicial Merit Selection Commission when candidates come through. It's not mandatory, but they get to weigh in. They had a judicial candidate for family court who had never served in family court, who had never practiced family law. And because of who they were and who they knew, they were the front-running candidate for that position. This person, this lady that I spoke to at a chamber event, told me that we looked at this application for this family court judge. They had absolutely no qualifications, so we said, we thank you for your application. We're recommending that you go practice family law for a few years and then come back. The JMSC ignored that, and that person is now sitting on the family court bench. The reason I think that this is a good bill is because if you take the JMSC from out under the legislative branch of government and you put it in the executive branch of government, you have created more parity of power. What I mean by that is, if you don't like the quality of the judges we have, because they are letting violent criminals out over and over and over again, or they're not following the law the way that they're supposed to, you can go to your House member and your senator and you can yell at them and you can vote against them. But guess what? There's 168 other members of the General Assembly you don't get to vote for if you don't like the quality of judges. We have created a system where power has been consolidated in one branch of government, but accountability has been dispersed. If the JMSC, the Judicial Merit Selection Commission, and the vetting and nominating vehicle for selecting judicial candidates to be voted on by the legislative branch of government were solely up under the executive branch of government, if all the commissioners were appointed by the governor, all the staff worked for the executive branch of the government, and you had a Citizens Advisory Committee say to the governor, sorry, this candidate has never practiced law in the very court they hope to adjudicate in, and that governor allows those commissioners to let that governor go out for a nomination. That governor does not deserve to be governor. Everybody in this room can only vote for your House member and senator, but everybody in this room can vote for or against the governor. That brings more accountability to the system, ladies and gentlemen. We need more accountability. We need more transparency. And that can only happen if we do these reforms. Now, again, I am grateful to those in the legislature. And I don't care if they're Democrats or in the Freedom Caucus or the Republican Caucus. I don't care if they practice law or they don't practice law. This is a right versus wrong issue. The time is now to fix this once and for all. We do not need another Logan Federico. We don't need to hear another story about a Larry Vaughn. We don't need to hear another horror story about family court. We need a system where the executive branch of government controls the vetting of candidates, the nominating of candidates, and the legislature does the up or down voting. And then you can hold those people accountable for their votes or how they nominate. I would also go one step further. And I support what we're doing here today. And I will close with this. I'd be for, let's have retention elections in the middle of the judicial term. If a judge, after they get elected, they get 6 to 10 years, depending on what court they serve on. If they're failing to follow the judicial candidates, if they fail to follow the rules of professional responsibility, if they refuse to follow a law that prohibits them from letting a repeat violent offender out on bond, which is now the law of the state, then they should be called up for a retention vote, a vote of no confidence by the legislature. That is something we should be able to do, because a judge is the most powerful position in the criminal justice and the civil justice system in South Carolina, and it needs to be independent, but it needs to be accountable. And that's what this does. And in closing, we need to reform how we elect magistrates, because everybody touches magistrate at some point in their life. Not everybody touches the circuit court. And that will go with magistrate reform as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, Representative White, coming up. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. Folks, there's a lot of diversity up here on this stage. There are a lot of people with different agendas, and we all have things that we're trying to do in our lives, but we all agree on this. We need judicial selection reform now. There is no reason and no excuse for not getting it done. So join us and let's get this done. Call your legislator and tell them to vote for it.
The other Republican candidate for governor that agreed to be here today is Congressman Ralph Norman. So Congressman Norman, would you come?
Representative White, thank you for hosting this. For all the speakers, I know it's difficult. What you shouldn't have to go through this. You shouldn't. I knew Larry Vaughn. He was a SWAT team member. He had retired for what? He retired for 8 months. He'd been on the Rockville Police Force. 30 years. And what a hero. Here in Stephen, wow. The sad part about it, when we went to in Charlotte, we had this bipartisan committee. We had other representatives, congressional members, and he had his daughter's picture up there, and the other members didn't know who she was. They were talking about statistics, crime statistics coming down in Charlotte, North Carolina, which unbelievable. They were talking, and even after Stephen, you made your effective talk, they were still talking about that, folks. There is a disconnect, and what we're going to have to do. Who's got ultimate control over this pay-to-play system? And it's rampant. In Columbia, South Carolina, it's rampant. Pay-to-play, legislative lawyers, only JMSC. I mean, really. Joe, you said it right. Let Clemson, Carolina, Central pick their own judges. How does that make sense? It's been that way too long. We've talked about it. But folks, it's going to get done now. You know why? We the people. And it's not going to be easy. It just isn't. They'll try to pass some milquetoast legislation that won't get the job done. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it at the federal level. Folks, it's going to end because you've got people now like Mr. Federico. He ain't going anywhere. Y'all are here. And if we don't have enough judges, don't have enough prisons, folks, we got to put priorities in place. It's not that hard if you do it. But it's going to take y'all. And I've always thought the best way when we are going to have to get the representatives to actually do something instead of just put it in a committee to die. We're going to have people who are willing to stand up, get the contributors of the representatives who give some money, and go to them and have events just like this. And let's let we the people control it. That's the only way to get meaningful change. And Alan is right on rescission. We gotta have a way to put these judges out if they start these rogue for whatever reason. We did it in Rock Hill, South Carolina, when a family court judge was making bad decisions and was letting the man who eventually killed the wife, let him go. He recused himself for 6 months. I'm not going to call his name because he's retired now. I will tell you this, criminals running loose, like the one in Beaufort County, Willie's Bar and Grill, the guy that shot 4 people and killed them. Guess where the killers are? Walking the streets of Beaufort. Walking the streets. Folks, if we don't have a voice and sit back and let this go, it'll just continue. And Joe, your bill 4516 starts the process, and it will get done if you will help us, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Pay to play is rampant, and we got to put a stop. God bless you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is my solicitor from Newberry County, David Stumbo, who's running for State Attorney General. David, come on.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you inviting us up here today to talk about this important issue. This is an issue, folks, that there's been a group of solicitors and sheriffs in the state, bipartisan. I've heard this said it's not a Republican, it's not a Democrat issue. Solicitor Pasco and I have been a part of a group of solicitors and sheriffs that have been advocating for judicial reform for some number of years now. We wrote op-eds in the Post and Courier. The Attorney General has been advocating, as he said, for over a decade. So in the law enforcement community, we've been begging for judicial reform. But I'll tell you this, until we had somebody who was a real champion for it in Joe White, and I can tell you this as one of my House members, this man was relentless. And he was just not going to let it go. So often things come up in the General Assembly and there's bills that are filed and they die a quiet death. And Joe was not going to let this die a quiet death and made it a priority for the law enforcement community. And we got a little bit of change, but it's time to finish the job with judicial reform, folks. And I'll tell you this, as I think Shonda pointed out, we have a lot of good judges in this state. This is not about bashing the judiciary. In fact, I think a lot of judges feel like they're in a bad position, folks, because they don't have the requisite independence, because they have to go kiss the ring of the legislature to get reelected. And that's really what we have to fix with judicial reform. We have to have accountability. And so there's a loss of confidence, and we've heard a lot of stories today. There's been a loss of confidence from the people of this state because of the way we elect judges. There's not a balance of power. You have one branch of government, the judiciary, that's completely dominated by another, the legislative branch. And we got a little bit of change with those 4 membership on the JMSC. But I agree 100% with Joe's bill. We need the governor's office to run the JMSC. So the executive branch is making the nominations to the legislature. And that will bring a little bit more parity. I would take it, folks, a step further. We can't do this without amending Article 5, Section 27 of the state constitution. I would like to see us mimic the federal model, because that's what we're all used to. Okay, we've seen the president nominate Supreme Court justices and federal judges all the way down the line, and we know that elections have consequences, right? And it motivates us as conservative Republicans to get out and vote in presidential elections, because we know that's going to make a difference in who serves on our U.S. Supreme Court and our federal bench. And we need to mimic that in South Carolina. That's going to take, I believe, a constitutional amendment to amend Section 27 to allow for the governor to appoint, after the vetting of the applicants, one candidate for a judicial appointment. And who the governor believes is the best of the slate they have, and the legislature should vote up or down after confirmation hearings. That's the best system. That's the one we're used to seeing on the federal side. It works. There's accountability back to the executive branch for which judges are appointed. And so I would hopefully we can work together, everybody up on this stage, to work towards that goal for a gubernatorial appointment of judges and legislative confirmation. And that's going to be the best system I think we can have. But in the meantime, this session, without amending Section 27, we can pass the bill that Joe has filed, and that will be a great first step in the right direction. But I do, again, want to commend so many of our judges. We've had Chief Justice Kittredge now, and I'm going to give him a shout out for a little bit over a year. Chief Justice Kittredge was a game changer when he took over as Chief Justice of our state Supreme Court. And we've seen great changes. He's working with us on the solicitor side, working with the Attorney General to improve the way that we prosecute cases and keep our families safe. And so I'm very thankful for what Chief Justice Kittredge is doing. So this is not a session today about scapegoating the judges or bashing anybody. This is about making our system of justice better in South Carolina so we can keep your families safe and make sure that there's accountability with family court judges so that there's good decisions made. And if there's ones that are beholden to other interests, then they can be held accountable. So, good first step with Joe's bill, and we're going to fight for a federal model for long term. But thank you all for having me here today. I'm David Stumbo, 8th Circuit Solicitor running for AG. Thank you for having me.
Our final potential Attorney General speaker is a guy named David Pasco. And thank you, sir.
First, let me say that I'm very grateful that I follow you in the microphone issue here. Thank you. My name is David Pasco. Good morning. I've been a prosecutor for 32 years. The last 21 years as the First Circuit Solicitor, which is right down the street in Orangeburg County and Dorchester County. I want to start by thanking Representative Joe White for putting this together and for your unwavering commitment to improving our criminal justice system. But let me tell you something else. Thank you for telling that story about 3M. Because I want more legislators to expose the rat's nest in Columbia, South Carolina. Don't we all want that? Let's start electing more Joe Whites. I want to thank all the elected officials for being here to address this very important issue. As paraphrasing Thomas Jefferson, a good friend of Joe White's. Today we are here to convince South Carolina that we're just brave enemies and friends coming together on the common issue of improving our justice system. So we don't have to hear more stories like we had to hear today. And of course, most importantly, I want to thank the victims for lending their voice because of the immense trauma you've endured. Your voice carries weight and credibility that others respect and will listen to. So thank you for telling your stories. But I want to correct Steve Federico. Steve, you are still your family's hero. And everybody in this room, right? The cornerstone of our republic is that we have three separate and equal branches of government: the executive, the judicial, and the legislative branch. You cannot have a separate and equal judicial branch when they are hired solely, fired solely, and funded solely by the legislative branch. And then the very loyal legislators who screen and elect your judges get to go practice law in front of them. My friends, that is madness.
It's incestuous.
It's insane. In South Carolina, loyal legislators just don't have the thumbs on the scale of justice. They have their entire body on it. They're stepping on it. And the results are damning because it creates an inherently unfair, and at the very least, a perception of unfairness. And the appearance of impropriety leads to the erosion of public trust, which is unacceptable. My detractors, almost all of whom are loyal legislators, we don't get along too well, as you can imagine. They say that Pasco bashes judges. That is not true. Like Lori and so many people have already said, we have a lot of great judges in South Carolina. What I am trying to do, what we are trying to do, is give them more independence. In fact, the people who call me the most aren't just lawyers and victims of the system, it's judges. And they tell me, judges, plural, Pastor David, if anybody tells you that we aren't looking over our shoulder, worried about offending a loyal legislator or JMS member, they're not telling you the truth. So to restore trust in our justice system and in our judicial system, the first thing we have to do, as everybody has espoused, is take the legislators off the Judicial Merit Selection Committee. So how did we get here? Where are we now? And where do we need to go? That's what I'm going to talk about. The reason loyal legislators get preferential treatment in our courtrooms, it doesn't take a genius to realize this, is because they pick the judges. And this problem has been going on for decades. Not years, decades, 100 years. But no one ever had the guts to talk about it. Then about 8 years ago, some loudmouth, formerly blogger, who turned into an investigative reporter, Will Folks, started doing stories about how there was corruption in the way we picked our judges. He started talking about it and doing stories and showing examples. Then in 2018, when I was your special prosecutor during the State House corruption probe, the state grand jury report actually mentioned, I think it was on page 39, the problem of legislators picking judges in South Carolina. They actually, citizens like you, threw that out there. It went ignored. I'm so glad my good friend David Stumbo mentioned Chief Justice Kittredge, because I wasn't going to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it. Because you're right, he's one of my favorite justices too. He's been the best Chief Justice in our career, without doubt. But when he was a justice and I was arguing a case in front of him and I was telling him about what I thought was wrong that happened in a courtroom, he looked right at me from the bench and he said, well, Mr. Pasco, you're not a shrinking violent. Why didn't you bring this stuff up then? And I thought to myself right when he said that question, because Chief Justice, it's just like every lawyer in this daggone state, I have been a shrinking violent. Afraid to speak out about the problems because of the repercussions that'll come down. Well, in 2021, I had enough. I had enough. And when I finished my part of the corruption probe, I decided to speak out. And I agreed to speak in Greenville one night. The press covered it, well, folks covered it, and I publicly stated the need for judicial reform and the need to get legislators off of the JMSC. Then, the second place I went to spread the gospel, a guy by the name of Joe White called me from Newberry, South Carolina. And he said, come speak at my barn, which by the way is nicer than my house. Come speak at my barn. And I came and spoke that night to a crowd of people from Newberry, of every party. And we started a ripple that night. Now through the work of others, like Joe White, now through the work of others, that ripple has become a wave. Today we have a huge amount of momentum, but we cannot let up. I saw someone wearing a Palmetto Revolution hat in the back. I've seen a couple of them. I think maybe you've seen or heard on the news, my good friend Ron Reddy with Palmetto Revolution and Doge SC has reached out to leadership in both the House and the Senate. And historically, somehow, I never thought this could happen, he has gotten commitments from the highest ranking members of the legislature to sponsor and pass a bill like Joe's, or pass Joe's bill, which takes legislators off the JMSC. It's historic. It's unbelievable. But Joe White and Ralph Norman will tell you, we've seen the playbook for this game before, haven't we? And what I'm worried about, my friends, is that once they're done filing for office in March, we've let them go unopposed, and they haven't passed it by March, it's going to fade away. And we have to make sure that doesn't happen. And the way we have to make sure that doesn't happen is we have to fight. Getting reform across the finish line, I tell you right now, I don't care how many people say they're going to sponsor the bill. I'm telling you right now, they are going to fight like hell not to get it passed. And who is they? The lawyer legislators. The lawyer legislators. I'm going to prove it to you. Look, I'm not a big social media guy. I just don't go on it unless it's sports or something funny, usually. And I never get into a Twitter war, whatever you call it. But I decided to post a story that happened this week, Joe. This week in a courtroom in South Carolina, after 5 years on felonies, a prosecutor was finally able to get the victim's case to court for a guilty plea. They've been on the trial docket 5 times and continued every single time because the defense attorney was a lawyer legislator. The last continuance, wait till you hear this. The last continuance was because they said they had to get their hair done for a TV interview. So I posted that to show the need for judicial reform. Oh, one more thing that I posted. Right before the guilty plea, the judge said to the lawyer legislator, I want to apologize ahead of time in case I don't call you by your honorary title during the plea. Lord, how does that make a victim feel? How does that make the prosecutor feel? Hey, how does it make the other defendants feel who are going before that judge without a lawyer legislator as a lawyer? Well, I posted about that. I posted, and a lawyer legislator on the JMSC went off on me.
Uh-oh.
Posting that story. Imagine that. Imagine that. Went off. He was so mad about it. Well, you would think that most judges, most lawyers, most victims, most people would have been appalled by what I posted. But instead, a lawyer legislator was appalled that I called it out and told the truth. And why is that? Because they are willing to fight and do whatever it takes to stay on that JMSC. And that means we've got to fight to take them off of it. He is mad. And his friends are mad because it's not, and I am public enemy number one. They're mad because it's not about service to you, the people. It's about making money.
Yep.
We're going after their livelihood. That's what they're thinking. So my friends, if heed my words, they are going to fight like hell to hold on to that stranglehold for power. We've got to fight like hell to make sure that our legislators do the right thing and get judicial reform across the finish line. I'll finish by saying this. If we do these things, if you call your legislators, if you email your legislators, if you activate your neighbors and get them involved, I am convinced and confident that justice will finally outbrave the madness in South Carolina, and we will restore public confidence in our justice system. Thank y'all.
No adjustment this time. I've asked a couple of people to pass these out. Jackie Carabille, that's fine, state legislator. I think Rocky was South Carolina. Elizabeth Gilmartin was wife of a fine legislator from Lexington County. I'll let y'all be distracted while I start my final argument. I feel like I'm in a court, but I've never been a lawyer. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to remain silent. One of my favorite quotes of all time. I'm just going to throw this in. People ask me, what's happened to you in the last couple of months? You've always been a bulldog, but you've gone crazy. I'll tell you this. Charlie Kirk. The day that happened, I said, I think I have courage, but I haven't exhibited courage the way I should have. So the last couple of months, I've decided I'm going to exhibit courage. And somebody said, they'll take you out. I said, what, take 3 years off my life? We came here today not just to talk about reform, but to demand it, to fight for it, and remind those in positions of power that justice is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. I'm thrilled by the presence of so many of y'all who care passionately about the future of our state. To the potential governors here today, your willingness to stand with us speaks volumes about your dedication to the people you hope to serve. You give us hope that leadership can be courageous and compassionate. Congressman Ralph Norman, thank you for your unwavering voice of accountability. Your leadership is a beacon for those who believe elected officials should answer to the people. Attorney General Alan Wilson, your years of service have touched countless lives. We're grateful for your commitment to justice and your presence here today. Solicitors David Stumbo and David Pascoe, your courage to speak truth to power and demand transparency is nothing short of inspiring. You remind us that real change begins when good people refuse to be silent. Above all, I want to thank the citizens of South Carolina, those who travel from every corner of our state, for being here. You're the heartbeat of needed reform. Your voices, your stories, your determination are the reason we're here today. You remind us that government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people, not of the powerful, by the powerful, and for the powerful. Your being here sends a message that cannot be ignored. To the General Assembly, hear this clearly. Our power comes from the people, and the people are watching. For too long, our courts have been shaped by a select few. Today, we're saying enough. It's time to listen to the people, your constituents. It's time to restore faith in our system. It's time to ensure that justice serves everyone, not just the privileged. I want to speak directly to Laurie Williams, Carl Stoller, Shannon Nicole, and Stephen Federico. Your courage to share your pain and your stories of injustice is the heart and soul of this movement. You have turned your suffering into a call for change, and you inspire us all to keep fighting until no one else has to endure what you have had to endure. To everyone here, you're the backbone. I say, the soul of South Carolina. You work hard. You raise your families. You pay the bills that keep our state running. You deserve respect, and you deserve a voice. Before you leave, I've given you a copy of every member of the State House Judiciary Committee, both in the Senate and the House. I want you to take that and share it with your friends. I want you to write them. I want you to call them. I want you to let them know that the people of South Carolina are united, and we will not rest until justice is truly for all. Remind them that 91% of those answering that referendum question last year said, yes, we need judicial reform. I just gonna say, I mentioned earlier, there's two people that are gonna control every bill, and you got to focus on those two people. Weston Newton, Representative Weston Newton from Beaufort County, controls which bills are going to get a hearing in the House. Senator Luke Rankin controls which bills are going to get a hearing in the Senate. We've got to make those guys cry uncle. The question before our legislature is simple, but profound. Will we, for the first time in South Carolina's history, be willing to give our judicial system separate and equal power? Or will we continue to let a small group manipulate our courts at the expense of our honest, hardworking citizens? To the press, thank you for being here and for carrying our message to every corner of the state. You are the bridge between the people and their government, and your work is essential. My hope, my prayers, is that what begins here today will not end when we leave this room. I urge you, stay engaged, stay strong, stay united. Let us be the patriots who remind our government who it serves. Let us be the voices that refuse to be silenced. Let us be the change that South Carolina needs. We didn't come here today to whisper. We came to be heard. And I promise you, when the people speak and keep speaking, even those who think they are powerful must listen. Thank you. God bless you. And may God continue to bless this great state. We're going to open the microphone for questions. First from the press, anybody in the press wants to ask questions. I know some of the people up here have other things they've got to go to. So if somebody has to leave, just thank them for being here. But anybody have a question for anybody else? Yeah.
Your proposal shifts power, Javar Warriors, Columbia Urban Broadcast Network. Your proposal shifts power from 170 legislators to one governor. How do you ensure this doesn't simply replace legislative control with executive control, creating a different kind of political dominance over the judiciary?
I'd let anybody speak to that, but it's easy. We've had that system in the federal system for 250 years, and it works. Yes.
You said it doesn't shift power; it shifts accountability. Because right now you have one governor who is accountable. You would have one governor accountable for the nominating process. You still have the legislature that has the power to up or down vote candidates or nominees. So you're not putting complete power in the governor. I think we would all agree it's about balancing the power. The three branches of government should be in constant tension with each other. Right now, there's no tension with the executive branch of government is not even at the table. We're at the kids' table in the other room while they're selecting judges. So it's not about shifting power to one governor. It's about shifting accountability because everybody can vote for or against a governor for how the nomination system works. But right now, the nomination, the selection, the vetting, and the electing of all judges is in one branch of government, and accountability is spread out amongst 170 people. So, I mean, to me, it's about accountability as much as anything, not about power.
But if the public views the current system as an insider's game, why should they trust that a governor-driven appointment process won't become its own closed-door circle, with even less transparency than the current JMSC hearing?
So here's the thing: until you take the humanity out of human beings and you take the human beings out of the process of government, you're always going to have that perception that if all men were angels from the Federalist 54, right? We got to put checks and balances to check the predations of men, right? We're not angels, so we need to govern ourselves. But right now, it's about having a single person who is accountable to all the people for the nominating of judicial candidates, and then the people's elected representatives who are responsible for the power, to use your word, of up or down voting them. If they don't like the quality of the candidates the governor is sending, they can vote them down. The people's representatives can still go to the people. But it's about, right now, as I said earlier, we have consolidated power in one branch of government, but we have dispersed accountability amongst 170 people. There's no accountability along there. And I do want to say this. I agree with what the two solicitors over here said. The current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is a great man, and I've had many conversations with him. And I've also had conversations with judges, and it was said earlier, There are a lot of judges who want this too, because right now, they're like, Alan, if I rule for the lawyer legislator, and it's the right decision to make, because it's possible, they could be making a good argument. He says, people are gonna think that I'm shilling for the person who votes for me. So I would like to have that removed. If I rule against a certain lawyer legislator, then woe be to me. So judges want this independence as well. Right now, it's not independent.
You know, one of the things that you have to look at too is, would you rather chase 170 people to get something fixed or one? Right?
Amen.
So you go to the governor and get one fixed. You have a voice against him or her, or whoever it is. It's the 170 that you can't flip to the side that needs to be flipped. You'll never cure and never know how many Alexander Dickies you have in the street when you go to 170 of them. But if you hold one governor accountable, putting these people back on the street, that because he's in charge of the judges, that's your fix. Your fix isn't the 170 chasing them down and trying to change your minds all the time. You have the ability to change the mind of one, better the chance than 170.
Yeah, I have a question. As far as, is it Shanna? Shanna. And I've experienced this too. I'm not going to talk about my case. In South Carolina, we do not offer jury trials in family court. Georgia has jury trials for taking someone's kid away. Think about this, y'all. In South Carolina, you can have a jury trial for a $50 seatbelt ticket, but you cannot have a jury when somebody's going to take away your kid. We need to put the power back in the hands of the people. Georgia also offers jury trials for anything as far as child support, alimony, and fees. I'm at over 860 grand in fees and have not seen my daughter in 3 years. I didn't get a jury. I got a corrupt judge, 3 of them, to say this, that I have to pay this. I have to pay $3,906 a month when I make 60 grand a year. I'm having to move back in with my parents. Now, the other thing, we have a case law, DeMarco versus DeMarco in South Carolina. Our own Supreme Court said in that case that family court is violating parents' rights by locking them up without a jury. If I'm looking at jail time, whether it's 30 days or whatever, or the possibility that I can be put in jail, I should have Your Honor, I want a jury to decide this, because in her case and mine, it's all based on lies. And I know without a doubt, if it would have been put in front of a jury instead of connected lawyers, I would have my daughter in my life right now. And she would have her kids. We have to have, I'm running for State House down in Charleston, State House 115. That's James Island, Johns Island, Key West, Seabrook, and Folly. Go to vote Carlton Walker. I'm the most qualified candidate for that seat. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I believe God anointed me to be in this position, because I'm a 4th generation veteran. I put my life on the line in Somalia to defend the Constitution, and come home and find out my state is not following the Constitution. And this Wednesday, I'm testifying at the Judicial Merit Selection Commission to remove a judge from the bench that started this whole nightmare for me. But juries.
General, I'll make this brief. We've covered all of the stories. We've covered Shannon's story for, Shannon, what, 4 or 5 years?
2021 is when it started.
Yeah, I started covering her in 2020. How do we get the money out of family court? Here's the deal. There's a lot of money. It's a $50 billion a year annual industry. Family court. How do we get the money? Is an equal shared parenting bill, would that do it? How do we get the presumption of, hey, we're going to play fair from the get-go in family court?
Boy, I wish I had an answer to that. If I had $50 billion, I'd have the answer to that. I do think that the equal parenting bills that have been in the legislature time after time, and we've got others coming up this session, I think that is a move in the right direction. We have to figure out a way to make these tragedies that are happening in family court to stop. And it does seem like, I've got a very wealthy friend who brags on the fact that he won everything he wanted in family court because he had the right lawyers that were connected. So, yes, ma'am.
So, yes, for General Wilson, this question is primarily for you.
I can't.
Do I
You
need
want
to
a
go
microphone?
forward? Oh, I can just speak up. So we're hearing a lot about just separation of powers and how checks and balances work. And as I recall, in the Joy Price case, your office petitioned to unseal a sealed order because you wanted to check the statutory compliance and constitutional compliance. What would the rest of us have to do to successfully appeal to you in your office to do the same?
I have 90 attorneys in my office handling about 8,000 cases, so I'm not familiar with this.
Joy Price.
Oh, Gerard Price.
Joy, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. So what was the question again?
So your office petitioned the Supreme Court, if I remember correctly, because it was a sealed order, because it was a backdoor order of retiring Judge Casey Manning, I think on December 31st. Okay, so like 1 foot out the door, right? And Representative Todd Rutherford and him and Byron Gibson had a backroom deal, and they had a sealed order that released Jeroy Price, a cold-blooded, murderer.
We haven't talked to Gerard on this time.
It's okay. So yeah, released him, I think 16 years early.
Yes.
So it made national news, maybe international. I believe he had to get the U.S. Marshals involved, maybe he was in New York, I can't remember exactly. We also have orders, we have courts, we don't have.
Is this early release?
No, this is just, I mean.
But I'm happy to talk to you offline if you like, and I know Solicitor Pasco is the original prosecutor. We're happy to talk to you about that case. I don't want to, they're talking about judicial reform. I'm happy to come off to the side of you right now and talk about this case specifically.
When judges don't follow the law, and you intervene in a case to check for constitutional and statutory compliance, okay? And you were in front of podiums when this happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's national news. What do the rest of us have to do to get similar attention?
Well, reach out to our office. I'm happy to, if there's a specific case, I'm happy to do that. Well, again, I'm happy to talk to you offline about it.
Thank you.
Anybody else, we're gonna look at the phone, and if we get anxious, I hear stomachs growling.
I know we touched a little bit on the accountability, but one of the issues that we run into the most, one of our bigger problems, is there are constitutional violations constantly happening in these courtrooms. Judges shutting people down for First Amendment violations, all the way to the 14th. You name it, they're all being violated. We go to the ODC, which is what we know to go to have something done, the Office of Disciplinary Counsel, and that's like a joke. So, everybody knows, what's the point, because they're not gonna do anything anyway. Who do we go to actually get somebody to do something about our real constitutional rights being stepped on like they're bugs in a courtroom?
Let me ask one of the solicitors that question. You understand the question, right?
Look, it's a legislative issue, right? So we gotta activate victims and go march on the State House like we have on judicial reform and other issues. So we can get some hearings and get your stories exposed to the people of South Carolina. Okay? That's what we have to do. The Gerard Price case, what happened in that, because I'm gonna tell you real fast because it shows you the rot in the system. A lawyer, legislator, and the solicitor, I called the solicitor out, went back in chambers and signed a sealed, secret order releasing the man that I convicted of murder in a trial 16 years early. So here, you all want to talk about victims being Carl and Lily Smalls got an automated phone call as they were eating lunch in their backyard from the Department of Corrections, telling them that their killers, murderers, the person that murdered their son is getting out of prison today. They called the governor's office. Nobody helped. What happened in that case was, the only reason he got locked back up is my lead investigator on that case almost 20 years ago calls me and asks me, why is Gerard Price out? I said, what are you talking about? I called the department. These were my first 4 calls. Brian Sterling, is Gerard Price really out? Yes, secret sealed order. Second call was to the Smalls family, and they told me they're whore. Third call was to Alan Wilson. he moved on it. We haven't always agreed on everything, have we? But he did the right thing like he always does in constituent services, and he went after him. And my fourth call, and I'll admit it, was the press. I called the press because the only way we get results is to have transparency and sunlight. So again, I'm going to go back to it. Go to the press, start telling your stories, get a group together, and let's march on Columbia together, okay?
I would just like to interject on what David just said. That lawyer legislator that he is speaking of is the lawyer legislator that helped defend the murder of my brother.
It's the backroom politics.
Absolutely.
We don't get to see.
Absolutely. And I am being accused of saying false accusations now. So everything is documented. So it's not perception. It's not public perception. There is corruption in our state house, and we have to change it. And it's us that does it.
I would love to continue, but we need to stop. And I thank y'all for being here. I'll be here to answer any questions anybody wants to ask me. Some of these people have other things they've got to go to. And so those of us who can stay will stay. But thank all of you for being here.
Hey, this is Carlton. I'm running for State House to represent James Island, Johns Island, Kiowa, Seabrook, and Foley. I am the most qualified candidate for this House seat. We got a guy I'm running against worth $100 million. Obviously, you can tell he wasn't here. Just moved to the district 18 months ago. Then also the incumbent right now, I've already been at the Judicial Ad Hoc Committee meeting concerning judicial reform of the Judicial Merit Selection Commission. And what is crazy about that situation, she argued with me why lawyer legislators should continue to select judges. If you want true justice reform, you need to vote for Carlton Walker, and we'll end with this. Thank you.